All right, folks, we're live. We are here, and I will be joining you in just a moment. Just want to make sure everyone has a chance to jump in here with us all. Bear with me 1 second. And by the way, I want to thank everyone for being here with us today. Today is Memorial Day, and I am really appreciative of every single veteran that there has been, everyone in our armed services everywhere in the world. Well, with that said, actually, let's get started. Hello, everyone. This is Michael Voss, Dragon of the Southern Tier. Happy to be here with you on No Soundbites Allowed. Thank you for joining me on your Memorial Day weekend, and I hope that everyone is having a very good weekend. We have wonderful weather here in the Northeast, and I hope throughout the nation. And most importantly, for every single member of our military, whether you have been a veteran, active duty, anywhere in the world, I hope that today is finding you in a day of peace and love and safety. I appreciate everything everyone in the military has done to give me the opportunity to be here today with you all, to be able to speak about the issues that are affecting us all, to be able to have a conversation with you about America and the issues that face us all together. That's not possible in other parts of the world. That's not possible in many countries because they don't have the Constitution, they don't have the American military services, and the people who have dedicated their lives, their blood, their sweat to us being able to be free. And that comes into a lot of focus nowadays when we think about coronavirus, when we think about the isolation that has been forced on us for 2 months now and counting. But I won't focus on that. I don't want to focus on that today. I want to focus on the positives, and I want to focus on the issues. And one of the big issues that we've been talking about, and something that really has been absolutely aggravating to me, I want to talk about Joe Biden. I want to talk about what Joe Biden said and what does it mean. What does it mean, not just as a person of color, not just as a Republican, but as an American? What does it mean when someone says the things that Joe Biden has said, and how does America react? How do we go forward, or do we go forward? What does this mean to us as a nation, and how we're going to deal with the issues that affect every single American? Because that's really what we need to talk about. Not the media hype, not the distractions. But let's actually deal with what he said. And I don't want to hear about the apologists who say, well, no, it was a joke. Or they want to say, oh, you misunderstood. Or he was just being cavalier. Those aren't positives. Those aren't answers. If he's being cavalier, it means he doesn't care. If he's making a joke, it's because it doesn't matter. I mean, that's the first thing we should take from this. The excuses we are hearing are that it's not important. It's not a big deal. Of course it is, because you're talking about people's freedom. You're talking about the nature of the future of this nation. You're talking about controlling people's minds, controlling people's actions, limiting the freedom that people have in America alone. That's not a joke. That's not something to be brushed aside. And it's not a gaffe. And that really, really highlights it for me. That really, really makes it known. By the way, so before I go any further, you can always call in at 607-242-1582. You can text. I am checking on Facebook to follow this in case anyone has any comments there. I'm also looking at YouTube. You can reach us on Twitter at MVConsult. I want to hear what people have to think about this. This isn't just me speaking to you. This is us speaking together. This is America speaking. And I know there are people who have different political ideals than I do, and that's perfectly fine. I want to hear from them too. Let's have this discussion. Let's actually have the conversation. Because we really need to have this conversation. Because I'm really tired of having people skirt the issue and make excuses for the issue at hand. And it goes well beyond Joe Biden, but we're going to talk about him in particular. So let me start off with this. Probably the best way to deal with this is let's actually go to what Joe Biden was saying. Let's deal with this. And I've been trying to take time to calm down to be able to make my comment, which is why I really haven't spoken about this until today. But we're going to go through it. And so let's hear exactly what Joe Biden had to say about this.
We have this notion that somehow if you're poor, you cannot do it. Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids. Wealthy kids, black kids, Asian kids. Okay.
I'm sorry. You thought I was going to say the other thing. You thought I was going to go to the other comment that Joe Biden made. You thought I was going to say something about Joe Biden saying that, that Joe Biden was going to go out there when he was saying that black people don't have a choice. You thought I was going to talk about when Joe Biden said, hey, black people don't have a choice about this. No. I'm actually going to what Joe Biden said back in August of 2019. Okay? Because this isn't a new thing. This isn't a surprise. Yes, Joe Biden says that he gets to decide who is black. You know what else? Joe Biden has made many statements on racism and class. And he has been very consistent about that. This isn't new. But you would think, according to the media, that this is the first time he's ever made a statement like this. This is the first time that we've ever heard him say something that is blatantly racist. And let me be clear. When I say it's blatantly racist, I'm not talking about blatantly racist because I think so. This is the way that we hear progressives define racism. An old, white, rich man is telling other people what it is to be those other people. He is defining races and classes and gender. He's defining people under his, as the progressives say, white privilege. And he's been doing it for a long, long time. And yet we're supposed to believe that, no, you just misunderstood. How many decades do we want to go back in time to understand that this isn't a misunderstanding? You say it once, I understand. It's a gaffe. Maybe we misunderstood the context. He's very old. Maybe it's his Alzheimer's. And if he has Alzheimer's. But that's not the case. We can go back, and I'm just going to one of the more recent comments he made. One of the bigger statements that came out during the 2020 Democratic primaries with 20 other candidates on the stage, where Joe Biden was talking about, you can be almost as good. There's an equivalence almost. Black people aren't quite there. He caught himself as he said it. This is insulting. And it's absolutely common. It is consistent and it is normal for progressives to tell us, well, you're black, so you don't get a choice. You're black, so you don't have a voice. You're black, and therefore you are beholden to the Democratic Party. And I have always been livid about this. I have always been upset about it. Not just when I was talking about it in April. You can go back over the 900 some odd videos I've done on this over the last decade. You can look at some of the thousands of articles I've written over the last decade. And I can tell you can hear consistently over and over again one of the key things that I'm constantly saying. Why is it that black people don't have a choice? Why do Democrats and progressives in particular seem to, I believe, that if you cannot be black if you have an independent thought, if you believe something that they don't agree with? let's think about what actually happened here with Biden. I mean, what did he really say? What was the big thing? Okay. What did he say? He said, you ain't black. If you have a dispute, if you have a discrepancy, if you disagree with Joe Biden, or you have a question on Joe Biden, you ain't black. Really, Joe Biden? Is that how you want to define it? Is that how you want to go there? I mean, I understand. President Trump, he's going to make money off this. His campaign's going to make money off this. But let's really think about this. Let's really understand how bad this is. I mean, Politico put it out there. It's right there. If you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or for Trump, then you ain't black. How is that an appropriate answer to anything? Okay? Let's really think about that. Imagine if you happen to be a woman, and the answer is you're not a woman if you don't agree with Joe Biden. If you don't agree with progressive ideology, then you're not a real woman. Or you're not a real, I don't know, Asian, Hispanic, Jewish, Christian, Muslim. It doesn't matter what you put in there. If you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or for Trump, then you ain't human. Because that's honestly what he said. If you're not for Biden, if you're not for the progressive values being put forth by the Democratic Party, then you're not human. And you have to be treated as an outcast. How dare he? Make these kind of statements. I can't imagine anyone who would agree with that. If you have a problem figuring out whether you're for X or Y, then you ain't human. I don't care what you fill into those spots, X or Y. It doesn't matter what party, what political affiliation, what religion, what gender, what sex, what race you are. If you fill in X and Y, saying that you have to be for or against something, otherwise you're not human, there is a problem. And that is what Joe Biden said. And that is what Democrats and progressives are protecting. If you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, then you ain't a woman. Imagine him, that being his answer to the allegations of sexual assault by Tara Reade. Would anyone in Me Too who believes in that movement accept that statement? Imagine that. Imagine that was the answer that Joe Biden gave to women in America. You have to believe me and you have to vote for me. Otherwise, you're not a real woman. Imagine if that was said. And I have yet to hear anyone in the media try and make that understanding of what this really is. We are talking about defining who are human beings with rights and who have to be listened to, constituents, American citizens. Who are these people? Well, according to progressive ideology, if you don't agree, you're not one of them. That should chill us all. That is more important than the 2020 election. That is more important whether you like Trump or Biden. I don't care right this second. It is more important than anything else to understand that this is a formerly elected, senior elected official representing an entire party, an entire movement, an entire ideology of America, saying this is how we define human beings. Now, that's incredible. Oh, we got a call. So hang on. Hold on 1 second as we get you onto the line. And I'm not sure who it is. Hello, can you hear us now?
Yeah, Mike, it's Jason from Bington.
Oh, hey, long-time caller. Jason, how you doing?
Excellent. Tell you I never, I actually wasn't really, planning on watching it, but then as soon as I heard what Biden said, I figured, boy, you're going to have something to say about this one.
And am I not?
Yeah, one of the things I was going to say about this thing is that this is the foundation of the Democrat Party. Their foundation is based on, the Marxist, communist philosophy, and it's all about intersectionality. So, they have to classify people in this little, demographic of basically victimhood. And so, if you basically what I saw it as is that if you vote for Trump, guess what you are? You're not a victim. That's what it told me, because that's what every single class, according to, Joe Biden says. And he, obviously is the executor of the individual who's supposed to save everybody from, being, I guess, what way he classifies as a victim. So he's the hero of victims of all the intersectional classes, being the white man on the top. You're going to come to him as the hero, to solve all the problems, But like I said, that's a Marxist, it's a communist view. And when he said that, he believed it, because that's the thing. It says intersectionality is that, and you can't get around it. It's not about defining a person by the content of the character. It's about every other thing on the planet but that.
Well, see, let me ask you this. And
Yeah.
I really want to hear from the black progressives out there to speak about this. I really do. Because it's not an attack. I want to hear them explain this. But you heard me mention it, and I'm going to say it again. This is about defining human beings. This isn't about black. It's not about race. I know people want to talk about it in the terms of race. It's not about gender. This is a statement that, literally, does it not make sense? If you said, if you have a problem figuring out whether you are for X or Y, then you ain't human. That's exactly what he said. And you can put anything you want in there, and I think it's absolutely unacceptable. And he has had this belief, and he has said it over and over again, as I showed in the example, going back, I can go to August of 2019, but more importantly, you can go back to anywhere in the last 40 years. He's been saying these things, and it's unacceptable. Am I wrong on that?
Yeah, well, it's like I said, though, the intersectionality and hierarchying people, putting everybody below you, irregardless of, outcome, It has nothing to do with character, has nothing to do about what you can achieve. It's about the fact is that you can only be judged by the color of your skin, your gender, and, every other, thing on the planet. But your ability to achieve the impossible is something that will never be recognized by these Marxist social communists individuals, and that's what it is. That's the philosophy behind it. Does he believe that other people are subhuman? No, he just classifies them as being weak and lower than he is, and he, being the great god of the Democrat Party, he is supposed to lift them out of poverty. And how he does that is basically by bashing down those who are above other people. It's not ever really about, of course, the bottom line is that Democrats never truly lift people up. They basically pull other people down, so we're all at the same level. That's pretty much, the way it works.
See, and I see that, and we have to uplift. We have to bring people up. We have to think beyond this. And I think we have to address this by directly saying, hey, this is racism. This is a racist statement. This is a sexist statement. This is a statement that takes away from everyone. It serves no one any good.
Absolutely.
And if we don't accept that, and if we don't say that, then we are dooming the nation. Because the next time it's going to be a woman or an Asian or Hispanic or a Jewish person or a Christian person or a Muslim person, you can put anything you want into this. And if you're willing to accept it for one group of people, my God, how do you separate any other group of people? That's the terror that I have about it. That's the thing because I had to step away. Obviously, I'm black, I'm Hispanic. I took this personal.
Right.
And I wanted to, the day I heard it that morning, I wanted to lash out. But I said, no, let me wait. Let me think about this. And I have to tell you, I come to this conclusion now because it's the thing that makes it insulting to me is that it's worse than just as bad as it is, as racist as it is far, far worse for America, for human beings. And no one should stand behind that. No one. And I don't know what kind of argument you can give that justifies someone saying, I get to define who you are and what you do because of the way you were born or the way you live or the amount of money you have or whatever other criteria you want to have. And that is, for me, the ultimately terrifying thing about this. And we're going to have an election where this is one of the choices. That that going forward, when Joe Biden loses, the answer is, well, you're subhuman because you didn't agree with us. That's terrifying. That's, people want to talk about Nazis. That's fascist mentality. Am I wrong?
You're right, and like I was saying, is that it's intersectionality is the Democrats' party though way of justifying sexism, racism, and every other ism on the planet. And look at it; it doesn't only go directly to the Democrat Party. I mean, I remember about a month ago, I actually called up and had to call Claudia Tenney out on doing something very similar, is where she was advocating, saying that, hey, you know what? It's really important that we get women, to be elected, into office. She didn't say what they needed to believe in or what, party they're affiliated with. She just simply said, it is, women that need to be there. And personally, I mean, I'm an individual who grew up in Bangtan.
Mm-hmm.
So my first person who I remember being in a position of power was Mayor Krapp, and that was a female.
Mm-hmm.
And so the thing is that we are constantly always looking to gender, race, and all these other things, to show that, hey, look it, somebody did it, somebody passed that threshold. But the bottom line is that I think it's about time we actually go beyond that and start really looking at what the person stands for, what their policies are, what are they going to do to lift you up and to bring our economy forward, And it's just, it's something that, we, on both sides, to a lesser degree, the Republican Party, but yet, it's still there and it needs to be dealt with in a way where, look at, where we're just we want to know what you believe. We want to know what you're capable of. We don't care about your gender. We don't care about, your race, and we don't care about your religion as long as you're not trying to, burden somebody else's life, in a way, by, implementing, some sort of, religious, law onto other, individuals, such as, which we've seen in certain areas with the Shia, Muslims laws being put in certain cities and stuff like that. So that's, I think that, the perspective of really driving, the nail through the whole perspective of intersectionality is where it needs to be drawn to. Because Biden, I mean, he's always been, racist, when it comes to that. Does he really wish, bad of, black people? I think he's honestly completely ignorant of, the solution to the problem.
Well, I think most people are. By the way, people, I'm just fixing the phone so it doesn't cut off on us. The power's a little lower than I thought.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. I think that this is just one element of a far, far bigger problem, as you're mentioning. That we have suddenly been deluded by media and a fringe of a political party who are very small but very loud. People like Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow, Plot. These and the Antifa crowd. They're very small. They have a big voice. They love to shout. And they've convinced us that the mere fact that you are born X, some kind of group, some category, somehow elevates you above other people. What happened to equality? You can't be equal if you're suddenly saying, well, gay women are more important than straight men. Well, wait a minute. Why? How? That's not genetic. That's not inherent. And I'm not picking on either group. I'm saying you can't place one above the other. And when you do, let's be honest, you're doing it for a political goal. You're using these people for that purpose. Just like Joe Biden is using black people for a purpose. And this is meant to, and the whole point is, if you're not in agreement, well, you're the problem. You're going to be ostracized. Because that's what Joe Biden was saying. You have a problem because you're in this category and you don't have a choice. You don't have a thought. He's saying, I'm going to elect a black woman. Why? What makes her inherently better than anyone else? Is she, first of all, you're saying a black woman. Well, that's generic. So they're all interchangeable. Every black woman out in America is interchangeable with any other black woman in America, and you're just going to grab one out of a grab bag and say, here she is, and isn't that good enough for you? Regardless of whether she has qualifications or not. Wow, can you be more insulting to women and black people and everyone in America to say that? That is inherently insulting. And I'm offended by that. If that's the only criteria is, just take any one of them. They're interchangeable. They all look and act the same. Because that's what it means. If that's your only criteria, they must be a black woman. Well, then you're saying all black women are the same inherently. And it's just a grab bag. Just grab one, put them in there because it doesn't matter. My God, that's insulting. And aggravating. And that we look at everything in politics and now in society on that same mentality. Are you transgender? Great. Well, that makes you better than everyone else. Why? Oh, you're gay. That makes you better than everyone else. Why? You're a minority. That makes you better than everyone else. Why? You're white. You must be evil. Why? I mean, really, we don't hear enough people ask, why? How do you get to that conclusion? How dare you make that assumption? But we hear it all the time. And sometimes it's said in different ways. Sometimes it's said like, oh, well, the police are evil. Why? Because as I recall, most police officers go out there and they save lives on a daily basis. The overwhelming majority of police, when you have someone break into your home, try and assault your family, I don't hear anyone saying, let me call my local crackhead. You say, I need the police. When someone steals your property, threatens your life, you don't go, hey, let me run down to the local plot office and see if they can go and write an article about this. You go to the police. Again, this is the same mentality. There is no difference in this. If we're not treating each other as human beings, if we're not putting people in boxes saying, you don't have any other right, you don't have any other freedom, you don't have any other thought, you have no other choice, then you have dehumanized these people. And that is terrifying. Even worse, I'd even say, in my experience, it's even worse than what I've seen in Russia under the communist government. At least then you were considered a human being. This makes you into a subhuman, in my opinion, because you're interchangeable, you're worthless, you're useless. At least the communists said you had a use. They get to determine what that use was, and you had no freedom about it, but at least they gave you the credit of being a human being. This doesn't even, what Joe Biden and the progressives are putting forward, doesn't even value people as human beings. You're just useless cogs that can be interchanged at random. And I don't think a lot of people think of it that way. You know what I mean, Jason?
I agree with you. I mean, it was kind of interesting. You're talking about, a list of, different things as far as, race, gender, and all this, and the political weapons that people use. And then all of a sudden, I just thought to myself, I'm like, geez, I mean, look at what your race, is going to be. You're going to have yourself as a black, man, and then you're going to have a homosexual man who's a white homosexual man that you actually running against, and which he, is supported heavily by Citizen Action and the progressive leaders of tomorrow. And then my question for them is that on the intersectionality scale, if you were just looking at a black man or a gay white man, where would they place you, But then I guess, maybe they're going to go by Joe Biden's, rule and say, hey, guess what? You're a Republican. You vote for Trump. Yeah, you're white, and that's how they're going to define you.
It's quite possible. And for people who don't know, by the way, let me segue here for a second. For people who don't know about it, yes, I am running for an elected office. So I'm running for a legislator seat in my local county. And my opponent is an older white male. Actually, we're about the same age, to be honest. But he's a white male, and he happens to be gay. And he is, you're right, he's absolutely supported by progressive leaders tomorrow, known as Plot, and some other of the far fringe left. And I have to wonder, and I would ask them, for those progressives who are standing behind Joe Biden right now, which would include my opponent, I have to ask them something that's very important. If it's evil to be a white male, and you have to raise up people of color, how can you vote for that white male versus me? And I'm not saying that for them to vote for me. I'm saying that because that's a question they should really look at in their hearts and minds and have to say, if they believe he's a better candidate, I'm all, okay, go vote for him. If you think I'm a better candidate, vote for me. But if you're basing it on our skin color, then that's racist. And that's not fair to him. It's not fair to me. It's not fair to anyone. I have good ideas about why I want to run. I have a lot of things I want to do. And none of them have to do with the color of my skin that I was born with. It has to do with my experience and what I want to do for the community. But they need to really look at that. If that's their reason, then there's a problem there. There's a big problem there. But of course, the answer is, according to Joe Biden, the answer is, I'm not black. That's what Joe Biden would say. Well, it's okay because you're not black. Which would be an amazing surprise to my mother, my father, my friends, my family members. The rest of my family are Democrats. Does that mean that I'm not black because I'm a Republican, but the rest of my family's black and Hispanic, by the way, because they are Democrats? Does that make any sense to anyone? And just for people who are looking on the screen, yes, it is official. I've been a candidate, got all the petitions back in February. We've been dealing with coronavirus, so no, I haven't been talking a lot about it. But you can go to the Vasquez for Broom site, and you'll be able to see more about that if you're interested in it. I'm not trying to focus on my campaign, though, in that sense. But I want to make sure people have context. So, Jason, thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I'm not, and I don't want people to think I'm shying away from my campaign. Not at all. But I'm not speaking as the candidate. I'm speaking as a human being at this moment, trying to say, hey, let's think about this. Does this make any sense at all? And again, it comes down to, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for my opponent or me, then you ain't white, or you ain't a Democrat, or you ain't a woman, or you ain't gay. I mean, I can put in anything in there, and I'm using it in the reference of that local race, and you could say the same thing, and people would be absolutely livid and insulted, and there's no way to say, well, you're just being cavalier. Well, that means you're insensitive. You don't care about the people. Oh, you're joking. Well, that means you don't care about the people or the situation. You're being out of context. No, it's absolutely in context. I mean, does that... I hope that brings it into home and makes it more clear that this is just insane that we would accept this from any politician or candidate, let alone someone who's running for president. You know what I mean, Jason?
Yeah, and the thing is that what I have to say is that look at I mean, to bring it back into your own campaign that you're going into, you are going against an individual who embraces the Democrat Party and most likely will stand behind Joe Biden. And so your opponent's going to have to look you in the face and basically, is he going to disavow exactly what Joe Biden said? I mean, how can you stand behind an individual who has those beliefs, and still say, I'm gonna support him. I'm gonna stand behind them, and and we're all supposed to be okay about that? That's the way life will be. I don't know how an individual with any sort of character would be able to do that.
I can't speak for him, and I won't put words in his mouth. I don't know what his thinking is on it. I would love to hear his answer.
I would too.
Because I'm more than willing to put out, a lot of candidates. And trust me, there are people on my team who said, Mike, you shouldn't talk about this subject. It's risky. No, I don't care if it's risky. If you, I've never asked anyone, nor would I, here I am, I'm trying to run, and, people are like, oh, Mike, you should run because, you'll be the first Black Hispanic ever in the history of the county. That's not a reason to run. Oh, you should run because, the Democrats, they'll love it. And no, I'm not running because of the color of my skin. No one should. I'm not running because of my religion, my sexual preference, which is actually no one's business. And we should never ask that of any candidate. It's what do you have as an idea to help people and to bring them up and help your constituents. In the case of Joe Biden, the nation. Where is his help? He's been in office for 40 years. And during his time in office, we've seen the middle class of minorities stagnate or reduce. And in 3 years, under a president that he hates, we have seen that same middle class increase. We've seen them grow. So I have to wonder, sorry, lost you there for a second, Jason. But I have to wonder that in the same 3 years that it took for President Trump to be elected, we've seen more growth and more improvement for blacks, Hispanics, women, more jobs, more businesses, more improvement than we've seen in the 40 years that Joe Biden's been promising that he's going to fix the problem. Why isn't that news? Exactly in that way. Why isn't that the comparison that people are making that the progressives and Democrats have promised over and over again? We're going to give you some, we're going to make your life better. Trust the government, and the government will take care of you. And they never come through. And they they'll give you all kinds of excuses, but I'll point right back to it. You know what? They had a supermajority in 2009. Joe Biden, vice president, Barack Obama, president. They had an entire House and Senate, all Democrats. They could pass anything in the universe that they wanted to. All of it. Over and over again. No one could have stopped them. And they chose to throw blacks, Hispanics under a bus. They didn't care. They went after Obamacare. And they told everyone else, screw off. Women, blacks, everybody else. Because they don't care. And I say that because we can consistently hear that they are always using gender and identity politics to get what they want, which is a vote. That's it. That's all they care about. Let me get that next vote. We see it at the local level. We see it at the top of the federal level. It's insulting. As you can see, I'm very upset. I'm upset about this. And I'm trying to cover it without being too personal and still trying to keep it professional. But at the same time, I'm very angry about this. This is more of a rant today because I'm annoyed. This is aggravating. I don't know. Is it coming across? Let me ask you, Jason, is it coming across clearly what I'm trying to convey?
Yeah, I mean, look, let me just back up a little bit.
Sure,
here,
sure.
'cause, I think that one of the things too is I'm nobody can see, but I'm a white male,
Okay.
but I grew up in Binghamton, and the reason that I actually listen to you and follow you is because you are dealing with issues in Binghamton, and some of the podcasts that you've had, with just naming a couple is with Arthur Lathler
Mm-hmm.
and then Tom Reed, have been something that has really brought a lot to the discussion that hasn't been even addressed in this area. And that's been huge. And one of the things that you mentioned too is about Trump, was the fact that everybody, wants to, when politically they wanted to find everybody, within race. And yet, when it came to the policies that Trump implemented that actually made the unemployment rate go down in the African American community, believe it or not, was actually it was created with the tax cuts that was impartial from Arthur Lather, which was an individual that you actually interviewed on your own podcast. And that individual, like I said, we're not talking about the race of the individual. We're talking about the content of his character, his ability, what his ideas are, and that's actually what honestly drew me to listen to you and then to follow you initially.
Well, it should never be about someone's race. It should never be about their gender or their sexuality. That should be always considered irrelevant. It's the quality and content of what they're bringing forward. I mean, we used to think of that as a nation. We used to hear about that. That used to be the thing. I remember growing up in the 70s. That was the thing. We want to be equal in our ability. Back someone's ability. Jordan Peterson makes a wonderful comment. We want equality of outcome, not equality of the process. I don't want someone to be put into Joe Biden's vice president. Shouldn't be a black woman because they're a black woman. They should be vice president for Joe Biden because they're the best Democrat to fill that role. That's all we should have to, that should be the only criteria that anyone should care about. And that should be the only criteria anyone talks about. Is that person qualified? And if they are, fantastic. And we can debate their qualifications and what their intentions are. And if they're not, what are we wasting our time on? But instead, we get to hear, well, they have to be this category. They're not human beings. They're categories. Because that's all it is. It's, again, dehumanizing. And that is absolutely aggravating to me. And I've seen it on the local level as I see it on higher level. I know you mentioned Claudia Tenney, who happens to be a personal friend of mine. And I have nothing against Claudia. I support Claudia, as a matter of fact. And I hope people in the June 23rd primaries that are coming up in New York State, I hope they vote for her. But I have to say, it is absolutely mind-blowing to me when people look at one category and not the person. And now I do understand, and I agree with Claudia on this. We do need more women in politics. We also need more young men, and we need more blacks and Hispanics, and we need more people who are involved. I don't stop at that gender. That's popular. It's what's getting the news. It's what people are talking about, but it's not the only thing. I think, yeah, we need more involved people. And if they happen to be women and women want to be involved in politics, fantastic. If they're young and they want to be involved in politics, that's fantastic. We're just not seeing that, which makes me think that they don't want to be involved. And that's okay. I don't want to force people to be in politics when they don't want to be. But I also don't want to dehumanize them because they decide not to. You should never be considered less human because you don't vote a certain way. And I don't think that people should suddenly throw out the label of racist because someone disagrees. Jason, let me free up the line just in case anyone else. Again, people, you can always call in at 607-242-1582, or you can send us a text, or we're looking at Facebook and on Twitter as well. So we're looking for your comments. All right. Is that all right, Jason?
Can I just say one more thing about a personal experience I had last year with my son at the recreation park right here in Bennington?
Absolutely. Please do.
Yeah, well, it was a situation where, we were on the playground and there were some young boys that were about 8 years old. And two of the boys, they identified themselves to this other kid as being black. And the other boy, later, he ended up identifying himself as being half black. What happened was they were all having a conversation together, and the kids who identified them as, being, full black, they started using the N-word with each other back and forth. Well, the kid who then was half black ended up using the same word, and that turned into an all-out, fight where they were literally, beating the crap out of each other because that word was used and it wasn't appropriate, apparently, for an individual who was half black to actually use that. And this just, to me, just kind of goes into a context of the insanity of this intersectionality that continues, to thrive, and especially in our area among, the progressive leaders at Tomorrow and Plot. And, really how, we really definitely need to push back on this and just to point out the insanity of this, the way this is in our community as well.
Oh, absolutely. And I think, and thank you for sharing that, because it's a great example of what I'm talking about. When we're dehumanizing people and categorizing people, you can only use certain words, which is the same thing as saying you can only think certain things. Words are nothing more than our thoughts verbally expressed and shared with others. And when you start saying you can't say that, then what you're really saying is you can't think that. And how dare you try and control the way people think? That's not freedom. You don't have to like what someone thinks. You don't have to agree with what someone thinks. But how dare you try and stop someone from being able to think? That's terrifying. And I know generations ago, you would never hear anyone ever dare say that. And today, you hear people say that all the time. So I thank you for bringing that up. But let me open up the line a little bit.
All right.
And we'll see if someone else has some other thoughts. And I do want to mention something else, folks, as we're going through. And I do thank Jason for calling in. And, of course, anyone can call in. You can text. You can comment on Facebook. I'm always looking for these comments. I'm always listening to what you have to say. When I was talking about this subject a little bit on Facebook, and I remember this one post, and I'm not going to pull it up. I'm not going to try and out anyone. But I had a friend of mine who happened to disagree with me. And his thought was that, well, Trump is worse. That was basically, that's what he sent in a text to me to reply to a comment. I said, this is what Biden has done is ridiculous. And he said, well, Trump is worse in his opinion. And I said, well, I disagree. And I don't see anything positive about Biden. I mean, this is not the first time he's done this, as I cited a couple of sources going back in time. Someone else came into the conversation and called my friend a racist. Said that the fact that he was defining this as about whether Trump was worse or not, it made him a racist, that it's a racist argument. And I had to turn around and I had to comment. No, I've known this man for years. He's a friend of mine. We have many discussions on many issues, and we don't always agree. And that's perfectly okay. But he's nowhere near a racist. Did he disagree with me? Absolutely. Did he think I was wrong? Absolutely. Did I agree with him? Not at all. Did that make him a racist? No, not for a second of a day. Nor was his comment racist. He was giving his opinion. But see, that's the division we have going on right now, at the local level as well as the national. If you don't agree, and this is, mind you, I know both individuals, as a matter of fact, and both individuals are friends, and I value their opinions and thoughts. But we've gotten to a point where we can't even make a comment. At this moment, if you're coming out and saying, I disagree with Biden, and I think his statement is racist, it's sexist, it is anti-human, it is anti-American to say that people have no choice. And when I say that, there's a certain section of individuals who are going to say, you can't say that. You can't think that. You are a problem for saying that. Because they don't like Trump. Which, in other words, means they want power. Because they want Trump out and they want someone they like in, and the person they want in is going to do more of what they want than President Trump will. They want power. Well, that's not, first of all, that's not a justification. And two, that's not worthwhile. I don't agree with that. And I'm not going to be silenced because someone else isn't comfortable with having a thought that isn't prescribed or benefiting their political advantage. We got to stop that. You don't have to love what I am saying. You don't have to agree with a word of what I'm saying. But if you're listening to it, then listen to it. Think about it. And if you want to tell me you think I'm wrong, give me a reason why I'm wrong. Because I think I'm laying out a very clear understanding of what I think. And to just say, well, you're wrong because you're an ist is insane. It's disregarding the actual discussion. It's avoiding the discussion. And we see a lot of people use those kind of words to shut down people they don't like or ideas they don't like. And I will never do that. And I don't think anyone should do that. And when we do see people doing that, which is what Biden is doing, which is what we're seeing when Congresswoman Cheryl Lee comes out, Lee Jackson comes out, oh no, it's Jackson Lee, when she comes out and she's defending him, and we're listening to all these groups come out and try and defend and excuse and explain why Joe Biden's, he didn't mean that. It's okay that he said that. It's okay that blacks are expected to mindlessly and drone-like vote Democrat. I'm sorry, there's a problem. And the problem is much bigger than Joe Biden. It's that mentality. If you can tell me that you definitely think Joe Biden is a great president, fantastic, please explain to me why. But if you tell me it's because he's not the other guy, that's not a reason. If you tell me that, well, I'm black, so you should be Democrat, that's not a reason. God help me. I hope you never say that. I hope no one has ever said that, or anyone that listens to this program will never say, well, I'm that because I am something that I was inherently born as. You should never say I'm a Republican because I was born black or white or Christian or Jewish or Muslim or gay or straight. And you shouldn't say that for being a Democrat or a libertarian or a conservative. Never. And if you did say that to me, I can guarantee you, I'm going to tell you, that's not a reason. Don't think like that. Please give me a reason. And I think we should expect that of everyone. It's so frustrating, folks. It's so absolutely frustrating to me. I don't know. I think I'm making sense, and I'm not trying to rant, but I am upset about this. I am absolutely vehemently upset about this. And I see this as a problem. And you know what? Joe Biden is a problem. Not just because of what he said in August of 2019, that was completely racist and classist. Not just because of his Me Too backlash, because of Tara Reid and the sexual allegations made against him. And not just because of his racist statements here today, his statements that are against humanity, as I have, I think, made clear. No, I think that he's just a bad candidate. Above and beyond all those other problems are problems of his party. The progressives don't value things that don't agree with them. And you have to be exactly as they have defined it. And if you're not as they define you, then you are the problem. And that is dangerous. I don't care what title you want to put on your party, that's dangerous. And that's the thing that we should be hearing more and more of the media talking about. That's what more and more of what we should be hearing about. I hope tomorrow, Monday, the 25th of May, I hope, actually, no, tomorrow's a holiday. That's right, it's Memorial Day. I hope that on the 26th, when we get back on Tuesday, that I'm going to hear on my local news radio station, I want to hear the argument that says, you know what, Joe Biden made a statement against humanity, and that's a problem. And that Democrats should call him out for that and denounce the statement, not because they want the votes from blacks, but because this is a statement against human beings who also happen to be black. But I'm not hearing that. And I will bet you money you won't. I won't hear that on the local level, and I'm not going to hear that on the national level. They're perfectly okay with him believing, as his history dictates for 4 decades, that there is an inherent difference in people based on the color of their skin or their gender. They're okay with that as long as they win. And that is insane to me. That we would allow that unquestioned and more importantly, supported by the media, that's a problem. You know, I wanted to talk about other things today. I wanted to talk about the Confucius Institute. There's been a lot more news about that over the last couple of days. It seems that there's, Binghamton University has responded about that. I talked about that in a previous episode. And, Binghamton University is like, well, we just don't want to talk about it. They literally have their lawyers coming out and responding to people who are asking, what's going on with this Confucius Institute? And their lawyers are out there saying, don't even speak to us. Don't worry about it. Which is basically ducking the issue. And it's come out in this national news. But as much as I want to talk about that and how that goes so against our principles as Americans, as we celebrate Memorial Day and the sacrifices and what people are doing to allow us to have our freedoms, instead, we're talking about Joe Biden. And we're talking about racism. We're talking about sexism. We're talking about classism, fear of genders. We're talking about people who are trying to dictate how you should think. I mean, let's think about it. Joe Biden was asked, he was told, I have a question. That's the thing. Charlemagne, the guy on the podcast, said, I have a question, and I would like to have answers to justify my vote. And the answer was, well, you can't ask questions because you're born a certain way. Folks, I don't care how you want to spin this. I don't care what you personally may believe politically. When someone says, you can't ask that because of the way you are born, there's a problem deep and inherent with that philosophy and that mindset and that thought. When you can't ask someone a question because of the color of your skin, the gender of your gender or your sexual preference, your religious belief, when someone says you can't ask questions because of that, their philosophy, not the person asking the question, the person who's supposed to be answering, their philosophy is flawed. There's an issue with that philosophy. And that's why this is so much bigger than Joe Biden. It's why it's so important in 2020, you need to go out and vote. I'm not telling you who to vote for, and I'm not telling you what to vote on, but I'm telling you, you better vote. Because some of these people are dangerous. And if you're not paying attention to them, and if you're willing to say, you know what, I have no choice. I have no voice. I'm merely, if you say, I'm merely black, I'm black, so I must be a Democrat, without any question or any thought, there's a troubling place that's going to lead you to. Come on, folks. I know there's got to be, I know for a fact there are progressives who watch this all the time. I know there's, in my local area and across the nation, there are members of Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow who are watching this show right now or will be soon. I know there are political opponents who are watching this. I know that there are members of government at local, state, federal level across the country that watch this. Don't be shy. If you disagree, this is a great opportunity. Come on, tell me. I want to hear it. I don't see a text. I don't see, you can call in. I want to hear this. Please tell me how I'm wrong. Please tell me how, when you tell someone that they're thinking the wrong way because they have a thought you don't like, please tell me how that is okay. Tell me how that's a good political belief. Tell me how that isn't going to bite someone in the butt somewhere down the line. And you know, when I ask these questions over and over and over again, I never get an answer. What I do get is, you're a black conservative? You're a black Republican? Oh, there's something wrong with you. No. There's something wrong with saying that I can't be a black conservative. There's something wrong with saying I can't be a black Hispanic Republican. There's something inherently, absolutely wrong with that. That we have sold people this idea that they don't have a choice, that they can't even think about the choice, is inherently a problem. Randy Perm has mentioned, hey, Randy, it's good to see you here. Randy mentions they won't say it publicly anyways. Well, they should say it publicly. Biden speaking, this is their progressive ideology being said publicly. And I hear it all the time privately. And I'm sure many people have heard this privately, whether they're women or minorities, or you have a different viewpoint on sex, gender, anything. And you're being told, you can't think that. You can't say that. That's wrong. How dare you? Remember Greta? Greta Thunberg. How dare you? Greta, you're 16. You don't know anything about anything in the world. And you're going to tell me how dare I think that keeping the lights on might be important? You're going to tell me that being able to feed my family, my friends, to have a home is evil because a 16-year-old doesn't like it? I'm sorry. There's a problem inherently in here. You want to tell me that maybe there's a better way? Okay, let's have a discussion. You're telling me I'm evil for not agreeing with you? What do you know? Why do you think like that? And isn't it terrifying that we have 16-year-olds who are growing up thinking, I can only think this way or I'm evil. I can't think beyond this little box that has been made for me by progressives. Otherwise, I must be evil. That is a terrifying, limiting way to live life. And that's what Joe Biden is representing here. So, Randy, I want to thank you for your comment because it's important. And, oh, hey, we just got a comment from Harry Rook. Hello, Harry, and thank you for joining us. Harry says, do you think this may further the divide between progressive Democrats and, quote, corporate, end quote, Democrats? Seems like after Bernie dropped Biden, has been struggling to create, after Bernie dropped, Biden has been struggling to create a unified base. Well, the problem is, one, as I understand it, there was never a unified base going into the 2020 elections for Democrats. Never. We saw 20 candidates, which is insane. Every single one of those candidates represented an ideology, and they were there to promote that ideology. They weren't there as candidates themselves. They were representing this pocket. You had Cory Booker for black males. You had Kamala Harris for women of color. You had Kirsten Gillibrand as a woman running. You had also Amy Klobuchar, another view of a woman, not quite as progressive as Kirsten Gillibrand. You had Pete Buttigieg representing people who are gay. You had Bernie Sanders representing communism. They're all there for these ideologies, but they weren't there to actually represent people. They were there representing the categories that progressives have out there. This is the way I see it. And all of these different groups don't agree with each other. They don't line up because they don't all have the same. They're fighting for priority in the Democratic Party. Which one's more important? Gay man? Black woman? What's more important? Because Democrats do believe there's a difference and they have a different priority. That's their whole thing about gender politics, identity politics. There's priorities. Of course, at the bottom is anyone who's a straight white male. They're absolutely evil, even though they make up a good part of the Democratic Party, but they're absolutely evil. And everybody else has got some ranking above that. When you have that as your system, you're never going to have unity, which is why Joe Biden doesn't have unity. He doesn't have wide support by Democrats, in part because the Democratic Party doesn't have a single idea. They don't have a single goal. They can't even figure out how to get a vice presidential candidate based on the qualifications of the candidate. Rather, they have to go by the criteria. Is she a woman? Check the box. Is she black? Check the box. Fill in whatever person that has a decent face on TV. That's sad. But that's their party and that's what they're going for. And I disagree with it. I think it's horrible. That's not a reason to vote for someone. And I see there's a Hollywood Reporter. We just got, John sent a link for Hollywood Reporter. About Clarence Thomas and Joe Biden's questions on confirmation hearings. I'll check that video out, and please, folks, you can check it out yourself. But we're doing the live show, so I won't get into that. But I don't know, folks. Tell me, Randy, Harry, Jason, the various members of Plot that are watching this, and any other Democrats or anyone, libertarians. I know there's a bunch of libertarians watching this too, as well as Republicans. Tell me what you think. Does this scare you? I mean, that's the real thing we need to ask our nation. Does it scare you that we have elected leaders and candidates that are going out there saying, don't think. And if you think, that's bad. If you think something that I don't agree with, that this political ideology does not agree with, you're evil. There's something wrong with you. That terrifies me. That terrifies me, folks. Because that's just not right. What is this? The Hollywood Reporter. Let's Skip ad. Which wants to give me an ad. Okay, I don't know why. All right, get out of here. And this was a link sent by one of the listeners. In new documents, Clarence Thomas revisits Joe Biden's questioning during the confirmation hearing. What is this? Let's take a look.
Finding out what you mean when you say that you would apply the natural law philosophy to the Constitution is, in my view, the single most important task of this committee.
Senator Biden was very focused on natural law. How did that go?
Who knows? I have no idea what he was talking about.
I just want to make sure we all know what we're talking about here, that you and I know at least what we're talking about here. There's a fervent and aggressive school of thought that wishes to see natural law further inform the Constitution than it does now, argued against by the positivist led by Judge Bork. Now again, that may be lost on all the people. You know and I know what we're talking about.
No.
I have to be perfectly honest with you.
I have no idea.
You sit there and you have no idea what they are talking about.
Yeah.
All I know is that he was asking me these questions about natural law.
Someone may apply to...
Yeah, that makes no sense. Okay. Folks, check out the description. The link will be in the description on the video, and you can check it out more fully there. Yeah, I have no idea what Joe Biden's talking about. I read a lot of law. I follow this, Whoops. Sorry about that, folks. One of my connections went bad. I follow the Supreme Court as much as anybody, but I have no idea what he's talking about there. Not the first time we've heard Joe Biden just ramble and say things that nobody knows what he's talking about. So I'm not surprised there. I don't know how many times in my life I have been told. Oops, someone's calling in. Hang on. Let's get them in. Hello.
Hey, Mike, how are you?
I'm doing fine.
Am I live?
Yes, you are.
All right, I wanted to give you my 2 cents and the reason I sent you that video.
And who am I speaking to?
John Restuccia, of course.
All right, John. Thank you for calling into the show.
Absolutely.
By the way, folks, anyone can. Text and comments and such. But go ahead, John.
I think it completely demonstrates how the Democratic Party, doesn't matter who you are, is just trying to absolutely destroy you, and specifically with Joe Biden, right? Trying to catch Clarence Thomas in a nonsensical argument that makes no sense, right? Someone who is an upstanding member of society, who literally pulled himself up from his bootstraps. Clarence Thomas is an icon to millions of Americans. He represents the American dream. He is a hero of mine, and it just goes to show, because he didn't fit that Democratic mold that Joe Biden said and was talking about, absolutely trashed for it.
Well, it's kind of sad that Joe Biden's I'm upset when anyone is out there saying, well, you only deserve this if you fit the criteria. I mean, think about it. What if we decided to say, well, you can't have Justice Sotomayor on the Supreme Court because she's a woman?
Mm-hmm.
Or if you were to say that Ginsburg couldn't be there because she's a woman? Or that we need to have nothing but Hispanic men that are gay on the Supreme Court. I mean, that's what we're hearing from Biden. Mm-hmm. You have to fit this profile, this category, this target group. And if you're not in that group, well, then you're not human. You don't have a value. I cannot step away from that. And it's not something I am hearing in news media by anyone. And it should be the first and foremost thing that everyone's saying. How dare you say that just because someone doesn't agree or that they have a question, that they are discounted, that they don't have a value? That's just wrong. And yeah, we see that with what he was doing. And you're making a great case of this isn't new. Like I said, I had the article from 2019. This shows us going back into the 80s. This is consistent. So this isn't a new thing. It's not new progressive ideology. It's not the Democratic Socialist ideology. And I'm not saying that this is Democrats, but I am saying this is the elected officials at the highest levels of the Democratic Party. That I am saying.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more, Mike.
Yeah.
Thank you for taking my call. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And thank you for listening, and thank you for commenting. I always appreciate that.
Anytime.
And I see that Randy also made a follow-up comment. And Randy mentions, absolutely, the identity politics in this cycle is insane. The fact that so many of my black friends on Facebook co-signing and agreed with Biden is further evidence of how liberal/blacks got brainwashed. I agree and I disagree, Randy, in this sense. If someone is blindly agreeing with Joe Biden on anything and everything and just jumping on bandwagon Biden for 2020, which could be you could say that for any elected official at any level of government. And if you're just jumping on the bandwagon because it's expected of you, if you say, well, I'm a Democrat, that means I always vote for a Democrat. It was Nancy Pelosi talking about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And I got to find the video. I had it, I know I did a video on this. Nancy Pelosi said that a glass half full in a Democratic district for Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, a glass of water could be elected to her seat. This is what Democrats think about their constituents. You can put a glass of water in front of them, say it's a Democrat, and they will vote for that. I don't agree with that. Not for Democrats, not for anyone. Not for conservatives, Republicans, libertarians. I don't agree with that. I think if you give people information, they make the best choice. But that's not what the leadership is saying. And in fact, they're saying, and if you think different, then you're the problem. That terrifies me. That's a problem. We need to talk about that, America. Vic Furman has mentioned. Whoops. Vic Furman says, as a black, tan, yellow, white, whatever, if you vote for Biden, you might as well dig up McCarthy and bring back Alabama racism and the KKK. It seems as though the only time minorities count to some Democrats is during an election. Well, yeah, I can see that. And Randy Perm mentions, I concur there. I'm not sure, Randy, if you're concurring with Vic or with what I was mentioning, and Vic makes a good point. Yeah, we see this a lot where we see politicians, I see it in many local races, in my local race, where politicians who have had nothing to say about anything. Well, it's about the clock hits the right date. And then suddenly from that day going forward, look, I'm all involved. I'm so involved and I'm paying attention and I'm here for you and I'm going to promise you a lot of things. And remember, if you're minorities, you're people of color, or if you're this group or that group, then you have to vote for me. And I'm seeing that. I see that in local politics year over year over year. You can look at Facebook pages and you will see this consistently. Absolutely no activity from some of these people. And then suddenly all of their activity all at once. And it's just in time for that next election. And then they go quiet again and they don't care what you think. And that drives me nuts. And that's part of this whole mentality. Well, you're going to do this because if you don't, you're the problem. It's not the problem that some of our elected officials are useless. You know, Joe Biden is useless. He has 40 years in elected office, and he failed consistently. And you say, Mike, well, you can't say he failed consistently. Yeah, he did. Look at the black middle class. Did it grow or shrink under Joe Biden? Guess what? It shrank. Unemployment, did it shrink or grow or stay the same under Joe Biden? It stayed the same or grew. Now it's been shrinking. Joe Biden has promised that he's going to do so much for so many people, but he's not actually come through with those things. And Joe Biden, the friend of all women, has 7. Let's remember 7 sexual assault accusations against him. Now, I'm not telling you that Joe Biden has to resign because of that, because I believe accusation doesn't equal guilt. Although the Me Too movement and the very same Democratic Party that Joe Biden is in says, yeah, you've been accused, you should resign, you should be kicked out, except if your name is Joe Biden. But I don't agree with that. I think he needs to be investigated. Let's bring this to the courts, and if he's found to be guilty, absolutely throw the book at him. But I also don't think he gets to hide from that and have the media just walk away. They walked away from this. Can you imagine if the media walked away from Kavanaugh, the Kavanaugh trials, and all the accusations by Dr. Christine Blasey Ford? What if they walked away from it? Yeah, he got accused, but some of his friends said it's not true. Let's go on to the next thing, because that's what's going to happen here. And I bring that up to bring up this. But just like in August of 2019, okay, just like in August of 2019, when Joe Biden was out there and he was making, and I want to play it again, just so you know, I didn't miss it.
And I'm going to go right to his words. I want to go to the words of Joe Biden directly, because I think it's important that we hear what he has to say. Here it comes.
We have this notion that somehow if you're poor, you cannot do it. Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids. Wealthy kids, black kids, Asian kids.
Okay, let me stop that.
Okay? This is what he thinks. This is the mentality we're dealing with. And I have to tell you, why are we accepting it? We should never accept it. I have Harry Rock has mentioned, given his cognitive decline, age, and dehumanizing statements, what are the odds that Biden gets replaced at convention? Before the crisis, I assumed Cuomo may jump in at the last second. No, I don't think so. It's a fair question. It's a very fair question. Do I see them replacing Joe Biden? Maybe if the sexual assault issue with Tara Reid comes back into the news, if people suddenly ask, and what's happened with that? Because Joe Biden obviously is not resigning. Unlike in previous Me Too movements, unlike with Kavanaugh and with so many others, even the Democrat Al Franken, where Democrats were like, okay, well, we got to show, we actually believe in this. Get rid of Al Franken. They didn't do that with Joe Biden. So if that comes back, he has no answer right now. His only answer really has been, it's not true, and I don't want to talk about it. That's been his answer. Nancy Pelosi was like, that's perfect. I love that answer. Don't believe me? Look it up. She actually said she was perfectly satisfied with his answer. A day before he even gave an answer, Nancy Pelosi was like, I'm so happy with Joe Biden's answer on the sexual assault allegation before he actually gave an answer on the sexual assault. She was perfectly fine with him saying nothing. Hillary Clinton is perfectly fine with it. If these are your role models, you got to ask some questions there. But if that comes back, because obviously the black thing, the racism thing, is not enough to take down Joe Biden. But I think the woman thing, the women issue, the Me Too issue, that would be. If that comes back, then you could see someone beat Joe Biden in the Democratic convention. But until then, nah, I don't see it happening. Vic Furman has another comment. And by the way, Vic is running for, Vic and Nicola Libis are both running in the 122nd district for the 122nd Assembly seat on the Republican side. They're both friends of mine, so I mentioned them both. But Vic mentions, if you want to change in Albany, in Broome County, then don't re-elect people who have created or done nothing but played you, nor should you elect newcomers whose rhino Oh, those rhinos endorsed. I agree. If you want to see change in government, be careful who you vote for. Don't blindly just go, Republican, Democrat, just let me roll right down the line. No. Find out why they're running. Find out if there's anything worth them being there. Do they actually have a chance? Or are they like, Biden's vice president pick, a black woman, so she filled the box. I'm just voting for that box. And if you do vote that way, and you can, please remember, you get what you voted for. And if you have someone who's not doing anything in elected office, and you voted them in, and then you re-elected them, who are you going to blame? I believe voters are the most critical, most important thing in America, and that you should value your vote. And anyone who besmirches that or takes it for granted, they have an issue. My problem is with what is being said about black minorities, women, in the assumption, human beings, when you say, if you have a problem, you're the issue. I have the biggest issue with. That is where my problem is. Not with Democrats. Not the rank and file Democrats, anyway. Not with libertarians or conservatives or Republicans. I have a problem with the people who have the ideology that says, you must do what we think or else. Because some of the worst atrocities in mankind's history have followed, do what I say or else. Vic mentions, I hope you win your seat. Yes. You're honest and open and speak from the heart what New York needs. Well, thank you. Thank you very much for that, Vic. And of course, I wish you and Nick, I don't want to pick either of the two of you. I love you both. You are great guys, and you are very outspoken. You have strong wills, and you both offer people so much. And I advise people, check out Vic, check out Nick Libis. Either one of them, incredible people. I'm not going to pick one or the other because I love them both. And I think they are brilliant men. And I thank you for mentioning my race, which, I try and keep it somewhat separate. But yeah, I'm not going to, just because I'm running for an election, I am not going to sit here and not tell people what I believe and tell you what I stand for and tell you what I think is going on and have these discussions that everyone else in the media is terrified of having. The media does not want to talk about race and whether or not black people have a choice, whether minorities have a choice, whether they should think independently of whatever any party says. They're not going to have that conversation. I will. Elected officials aren't going to have this conversation about whether or not it is dehumanizing to say, if you don't agree with me, you are the problem. They don't want to have that conversation. I will. Because it's bigger and more important, and it absolutely must happen, because when we don't, we have worse problems. So, I mean, that says a lot. And I think and the fact that we're having people call in who are people who are sending out messages on Facebook, on YouTube, people are texting, typing. Folks, you're not the only one who is thinking this. You are not the only one who is saying, I have issues with this. I have questions. And you should. Even if you love Joe Biden and you think he's the best thing that's ever happened, you should have some serious questions here. Even if you're a lifelong Democrat and you believe in the democratic principles, or you're a progressive and you believe in the progressive principles, which are not the same as democratic principles, or you're a socialist, which pretty much is a progressive, and you believe it, and you think it's the best thing in the world, you should still stop and have a question here, because this is troubling. This is a bad direction for the nation. And the fact that the media doesn't want to ask these questions because the media does not want you to think about it means you absolutely should think about it. And make your own conclusion. Mind you, I haven't told you this is what you should think. I want to be clear about that. I did not say, And you should think this. What I am saying is there's a problem. And you can come up with whatever solution you want for that problem, or you can tell me it's not a problem, but you got to think about it. You can't just say, well, they're going on to other news. It must not be important. I mean, remember when Bill Maher, this reminds me, it's like when Bill Maher came out with his new rules for sexual assault monsters. And Bill Maher says, even if Joe Biden did sexually assault Tara Reade, it doesn't matter because he's a Democrat and he's running in 2020. So let it go. Could you imagine anyone? Imagine your local official, I don't care, any elected official, and they said, even if they committed rape, vote for them anyway. You would laugh. You would say, that's insane. How dare you? The news media, your local news media, if someone said that, they would go absolutely berserk talking about how could you possibly say that? But the Democratic Party, in particular in support of Joe Biden, are saying, no, that's okay. They said in August of 2019, it's okay to be racist, Joe, because you're the leading Democratic nominee to go up against President Trump. They're saying now, it's okay, Joe, that you're saying that blacks don't have a choice. It's okay. No. No one should be satisfied with that. No one should agree with that. Everyone should be fighting against that. And maybe this brings out, maybe only one person, maybe two, maybe everyone says, okay, there's a problem here. And maybe we look at all of our elected officials, not just Joe Biden, not just the Democratic Party, but all the politicians, and we look at them and say, hang on, I have a question. Answer the question. You know, I'll put it in context. Let's think about COVID-19. How many politicians are talking to you right now about what they're going to do in October when COVID comes back? Because there is no vaccine. And even if we did have one, doesn't guarantee it's going to work. But in October of 2020, COVID-19 is coming back along with the flu and everything else that normally happens. What are they going to do? What is Governor Cuomo? What is, in my case, County Executive Jason Garnar? What are the elected officials? What is their plan? How are they going to protect you? What plans are they starting to put in place now to protect the businesses that you work at, that you own, that helps put food on your plate and light and electricity and the internet for you? What are they doing for that? Have they mentioned it at all? Or are they avoiding it because they don't have a plan? And as long as you don't ask, they don't have to have one. I got a comment from Brian Freeze. Brain Freeze. Okay, that's the YouTube name, all right. Brain Freeze says, just turning in now, so forgive me if I repeat myself. Please, go right ahead. But Joe Biden is not running for president, the vice president, and all the deep state are running for president with Biden's campaign. I've heard that comment before. And I understand that understanding that Joe Biden, no one expects him to do anything. He's just a figurehead. And that he, because of his age, potentially because of his mental health, he may not make it through his full term. And therefore, whoever he picks as vice president will be running the show. Or other operatives of the Democratic Party would be running the show. He would be a proxy president. I've heard that before. And let's say, if that's true, isn't it even more important that we don't get a blank slate candidate as vice president? It's not enough for a black woman, period, to be in office as his vice president. It has to be someone who's qualified. It has to be someone who deserves that position, who is good enough for that position. We can't accept it, which means we have to ask the question, who are you picking? Why are you picking them? Are they good enough? We have to ask questions, Joe Biden. And the answer from Joe Biden is, well, you're asking questions, so you are a problem. I'm sorry. No. So it is absolutely devastating to hear this. This is such a problem. It is not just a black issue, which it has been very much. Listening to Joe Biden, his comments from the Breakfast Club talking to Charlemagne, it's not just a black issue. This is an American issue. It's not just about racism or sexism. It's about humanity. And we need to hear more people in the news media, more people in elected offices and candidates standing up and saying, I don't accept that. You cannot pigeonhole people, put them in a corner, put them in a box, and tell them they have no voice unless you approve. Because that's not what America does. It is what China does. It is what North Korea does. It is what the Soviet Union has done. It's not what America does. It's amazing. And I will say this. For those progressives, and I know, if Plot wants to make a comment, that's the progressive leaders of tomorrow. If Antifa wants to make a statement, if the Democratic Socialists, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, if they want to make a statement, if Joe Biden, God help me, if Joe Biden wants to respond, which I don't think he would dare, but if they want to make a comment, please do. I honestly, respectfully want to hear those comments. If you think I'm wrong and you have a reasoning, please share that. I want to hear it. Then you can do it in comments. You can do it in text. I want to hear it. And I'm more than happy to give you airtime to share it with everyone else. I received it. Brain Freeze had a follow-up comment. I'm a woman, so I can say this, unfortunately, but there are no Democratic women who are qualified. Vic Furman mentions, as we remember the men and women who died this Monday in the war to free America from tyrants and every war since, let us also remember those freedoms that many Democratic politicians have desecrated and promised to destroy: guns, God, and life. Brain Freeze also follows up, all the conservative or centrist women are voting for Trump. So here's the thing. And by the way, I agree with you both. I think you're correct. I don't see a Democratic woman who is qualified because none of them made it. Democrats didn't think Kamala Harris was good enough. That has nothing to do with Republicans, conservatives. Democrats didn't think. She never got over, 7.5%, according to Real Clear Politics, because Democrats didn't think she was good enough. So no, I don't think they have a candidate right now. And she did one of the best. Her and Amy Klobuchar did probably the best of all of the candidates, the Democratic female candidates, regardless of race. They did the two best, and neither of them, and Elizabeth Warren. And they were all three rejected at the end of the day. They're not good enough. So I don't think the Democratic Party does have a clear, good candidate for vice president. And I do see why a lot of women, conservatives and centrists, would support Trump. I mean, he did get more women in the workplace as employees and as business owners than we've seen before. So I get it. I don't know. I keep coming back to, I'm so aggravated that the media is not encouraging people to ask questions and to have their own minds. But they sure are making a big point of saying, no, you have no choice. No, it's okay. You don't get to choose. I can't wait until Joe Biden says, well, women don't get a choice. You have to vote for me because I'm a Democrat and you're a woman. I don't think that'll work. But I don't see it any different than what he's been saying. Oh, there's just so much wrong with this. There's so many problems with this statement, with this mindset, with this direction that affects so many people. So many people. I was going to mention, this isn't new to me. I've been seeing this for decades of my life. I'm a black man who's a conservative and a Republican. And for decades, you can't do that. You can't. How could you do that? How dare you do that? Doesn't anyone ever stop and go, why? What? Asian people can't? They all have to vote one way? Hispanics all have to vote one way? You're not an individual? You don't have a choice? Are you that afraid of being told you're not in the party? You're not in the cool club? You're not one of the cool kids? Are we back in high school? How dare Biden try and tell me what it is to be black? I kind of woke. I was born this way. I wake up every morning this way. I think I have a pretty good idea whether or not I'm black. And I don't need a political party to try and put up an arbitrary list of criteria that only benefits them to tell me who I am. Vic mentions saying, COVID has helped the Democrats keep debates in the closet. They cannot debate the facts that convict them. And I do hope that there will be more debates. We do need them desperately. For every local, state, federal office, we need more debates. We need more people paying attention to the debates and asking questions. Brain Freeze also responds, what I meant, by the way, by unfortunately, is that men can't say that no woman is qualified for the vice presidency because they would be called sexist if they did. But, oops, 1 second, folks. Lost one of my cameras. There we go. Nope, wrong one. There it is. Hey! But if they did, that's another topic. And the answer, I would say, whoops, come on. Sorry, folks. Just fixing. One of my cameras went down, so I had to just switch cameras here, if I can. There we go. So what I would say is, yeah, I'm willing to say that I don't care if people want to call me. They call me sexist. I've been called racist, sexist. I've been called everything under the sun. Every ism, every ist. I don't care. I'm more than happy to say that I don't believe there's a qualified woman out there. I believe that the Democratic process proved they don't have a solid choice. A woman who is ready, prepared, and capable, according to Democrats, to be vice president. I don't see it. And if they want to say, well, Mike, that's a sexist statement. No, that's an observation about candidates. I don't, you want to ask me, do I think that any of the male Democrats are really a good choice for vice president? I tell you the same thing. No, I don't think any of them qualified either. I don't think they were good choices. Pete Buttigieg, I mean, what was his choice? What was his thing? He's gay. And nothing. Beto. Remember good old Beto, the fake Hispanic? A man who was so fractured that he couldn't even go by his own name. He couldn't even accept that he's just a white guy. He has to be a pretend Hispanic. And even that guy, I mean, what's he got? He's against guns. They all are. What's new? Ask any elected Democrat, are you in favor of the Second Amendment? They'll come out with 1,000 reasons and 1,000 ways to say no. You ask them, do you agree with Joe Biden? Well, kind of. See, you just didn't understand what he was saying. You got to understand what he was thinking. He was making a joke. He was being cavalier. He's not saying that black people don't have a thought. He's saying that Trump is a problem. No, that's not what he said. That's not what he's saying. That's not what the words mean. No. You're creating a brand new context that doesn't exist. I don't know. Like I said at the very beginning of the show, this is somewhat of a rant. I am very upset. And this is me getting off my chest. And if you think I'm somewhat angry and ranting a little bit, maybe I am. You can't imagine what I was thinking when this came out. When the news had hit this on Thursday, and I was livid. But I've calmed down a bit. Vic Furman mentions that we're all colored. Not quite, Vic. I get the sentiment. You know, we're all human beings. I get that. We're not all colored human beings. And that's okay. See, it doesn't matter if we are or if we aren't. I don't care. I don't care if people are male or female in the sense that if we're talking about politics, if we're talking about, you know, going for a job, for this, for that, for most things. It doesn't, overall, I don't really care. We're all human beings. At the end of the day, we're all human beings. We got blood. We live, we go for the same things. We need shelter, we need food, we need company, we need each other. Do I really care what color your skin is? No. And if you do, that's your problem. I don't care. At least have a reason. At least be honest. Is that too much to ask for from our politicians? Be honest. You know what? I'd respect Joe Biden a lot more if he just said, yeah, I'm an old school racist. I'm 80 years old. I grew up during the time of the 1950s with rampant, or 50s and 60s, rampant racism. Back before there was the entire march. He grew up as a man who would be surrounded by racism and racist comments. And so he has problems with it. If he just said that, I'd be honest and I could respect him more. I wouldn't agree with him more, but I could respect him more. That, okay, yeah, this is an 80-year-old man that grew up with that world. I understand why he has that world view. I don't agree with it, but at least I can understand where it came from. But, you know, he doesn't get any respect because he won't say that. Brain Free says, Democrats think that it's okay as long as you're joking. You are correct. Conservatives cannot joke. Biden was joking. But behind every joke is the truth behind what people really think. See, and there I don't agree with him. I don't think he was joking. I listened to his comment. I think he wasn't joking. Joe Biden thought he was talking to a black audience, so he could get away with saying anything. Joe Biden didn't and doesn't value black voters. It is a given that he will get 75% of the black vote, because in every presidential election in the last 2 decades or so, Democrats get 75% of the vote. And as long as he gets that, he knows he has a very good chance of winning. If he gets 70% of the black vote, he'll probably lose. But if he gets 75 or more, he has a good chance to win. So he doesn't care. He doesn't have to do anything for the black vote. He doesn't have to speak. He barely has to speak to the black people other than saying, don't worry, I'll take care of you. That's about it. And as long as he does that, the absolute bare minimum of attention, well then, you know, he should be good. Because he can say, Democrat, and that's all he needs to do. So I don't think he was joking. I think he didn't care. He was saying what he thought. He knew he could get away with it, and he just didn't care. Brain Freeze goes on to say, Prager did a blurb recently about the difference between classic liberals and the new left. Classic liberals believed as conservatives do now. Skin color does not matter. Well, I try to make the difference myself often. because I agree with you, Brain Freeze, and I agree with Prager University. And I do believe there's a big difference between the rank and file Democrats, progressives, well, liberals, I should say, and then the progressives. Very different groups, very different ideologies. They're not the same. The problem is you've got progressives who have the biggest voice, making the biggest shouting and screaming. And they make it seem like they control everything. And to a certain extent, they do on a local level. Because they're willing to shout and intimidate and scream. They get people to do what they want. And that's terrifying. That's sad. And that's a problem for the Democratic Party. And I hope one day they get to resolve that. Because I think you're talking about your classic liberal. You can work with them. You can negotiate. You can try and find the best answer and make compromise, which is what Congress is there for. That's what laws are there for. They're not, my party said so do it. It's, here's what we think are the best elements of what the people need. That's what it's supposed to be about. But, that's history. All right, folks. So, yeah, I've got 10 minutes. We've got about 10 minutes because I've been going for about 2 hours here. We'll be at 2 hours and 10 minutes. So, tell me. Let me ask very, very directly, very simply. Am I wrong? And I'm perfectly fine with people. If you think I just missed it, I just didn't get it, that's okay. Tell me I didn't get it. Yes, Brain Freeze, I do understand that you're going to review and take it into context of what Biden said and what he meant from my understanding of it. And I think if you watch the video, not read his comments, but watch the video of Biden when he's speaking to Charlemagne on the program called The Breakfast Club. And if you look at the video, look at both when Charlemagne's saying, we have questions, Joe's reaction wasn't, I'm going to joke. He cut Charlemagne off and made a statement. And his body language, his words that he chose, and the way he said it with his tone, that wasn't a joke. It wasn't being cavalier. It's, I don't care what question you have, you're going to do this or else. That's what I saw. That's what the video shows. Try and get an extended video, not a short clip which just shows Joe making that. Get the full context. Listen to what Charlemagne says, and then watch as Joe Biden cuts him off and responds. And when you do that, you're going to see this was no joke. This wasn't being cavalier. This is a man telling you this is what he believes. He doesn't care what you think, and you're going to do what he says or else. And we see that constantly when it comes to Democrats and progressives talking to minorities. You're going to do what I said or else. And they mean it. And that's sad. I know a lot of people said, Mike, you shouldn't have this subject. You shouldn't do this. If you're going to talk about it, just talk about it for 5 minutes. I'm like, no. You know what? If I'm going to lose, if this is something that would, if me saying I believe human beings should be encouraged to think and make their own decisions, if that's a bad, touchy subject, then you know what? I shouldn't be running for any elected office if I'm afraid to say that. Brain Freeze, you mentioned, do I have a regular broadcast time? It's been back and forth. A lot of things in life have changed, so I used to have it. But at this point, we're looking to try and do every Sunday at 2:30. Now, I do have to mention it's come up a couple times. I am running for an elected office. I've tried to keep that completely separate of this, which is a little tricky. But I think they are separate things, and I do try and keep them separate. So as long as I can maintain that every Sunday, 2:30, that is my intention. I'm going to do a show and talk with everybody. And Brain Freeze, I thank you for speaking today, along with everybody else who spoke. I look forward to you guys speaking, and I love the questions. And I don't care if you agree with me, you disagree with me. I don't want you ever not to ask a question. I respect whether you agree with me or not, that you have something to say. And I want to hear it. And I want to thank Vic Furman as well, and also it was John Rastusha and Harry Rook and Randy Perham for calling in, and Jason from Binghamton who called in. I want to thank you guys because I love it. And we still got another 5 minutes, but I just want to make sure I did thank you, all of you, and everyone who's been watching on YouTube, on Facebook, on and off. Hey guys, I appreciate it. Brain Freeze goes on to say, I have a question, which is cool. I get upset by the lack of involvement of even conservatives. What do you, I feel frustrated. Well, it depends on what you mean by lack of involvement. Am I upset that there aren't a lot of conservative media who are saying what I'm saying right now about Joe Biden, and that this is something that's bad for humanity as well as bad for America, that he is devaluing human beings? Yeah, that pisses me off. And I have problems with that a lot. There are other subjects where more or less, sometimes more or less, because some issues aren't as big for people. But yeah, that annoys me. You went to clarify. What do you do regarding apathy, even by conservatives? I tell them, get off their butts and get out and vote. And vote for somebody and have a reason for it. And if you don't have a reason, then you haven't looked at your candidates. Look at the candidates, make a choice. Because when you don't, I can tell you this. If you vote for X or Y, you've got a chance of improving things. If you don't vote for either, guaranteed, you have not helped fix the problem. The problem will continue, and it will probably get worse unless you get lucky. And I don't like trying to rely on luck for politics. I tell people, get up, go out and vote. You don't have to vote for me. You don't have to vote for what I believe in. You don't have to vote my party. I don't care what party you vote for. I don't. Vote what you think is the best thing to vote for. But whatever it is, have a reason for voting it. But more importantly, get out and vote. Because when you're out and voting, if we get enough people to go out and vote, we tend to get better results over and over again. And you're not going to get things to get better if you don't get out there and be part of the solution, which is getting out and voting. You're not going to get better candidates if you don't go out and vote. Because if no one's out there, you know how hard it is to run for an election? It's incredibly hard. It's incredibly aggravating. It's incredibly tiring. It's not a lot of fun at all. But you do it because you believe in certain principles, or you should do it if you believe in certain principles, unlike Joe Biden, who's doing it more for money and power, in my opinion. But you run because you believe and you want to make that issue important. You only get to get those things fixed, say like gun control or, like red flag laws, getting rid of them, which is one of the things I stand for. I'm a Second Amendment advocate. And I go out and I want to remove some of these stupid, redundant, and useless laws that do nothing but take away people's freedom, like the red flag laws, like the New York SAFE Act. I want to get rid of those. So am I willing to run? Yes. Can I change that? If enough people vote, yeah. And that's important. Alexander Torrey, hey, thank you for joining in and making a comment. Sorry, it's just about over, but I want to make sure you just made a comment and you said, Alexander says, get out and, oh, okay, you're promoting a candidate. Well, Alex, that's nice. That's not relevant to what I was saying. Yes, people should get out and they should vote. And I don't care what party you vote for or what candidate you vote for. Have a reason. But I'm not going to go and promote candidates. Heck, I'm not even promoting myself, really. Well, Brain Freeze, it looks like you may be the last one to comment. So you said, the liberals are charged up and energized. The conservatives are working, etc., and trying to live their lives. I wish conservatives were more energized. Actually, I don't think that's accurate. My observation, most of the, even progressives, most of them, they're not really that energized. It's just that they have really good press coverage. They have an event, at least locally, where you see, 10, maybe 20 of them maximum, which don't even, that's like 0.1% of, well, more like 10% of some of their groups locally. As an example, they're not really into it, but they have a lot of noise. Even when you look at downstate, they are not, across the nation, you see very small pockets of very livid people, even as a progressive, like Plot as an example, or Antifa. There are a handful of those guys, but they just make a lot of noise. And they go on, they scream and they shout, and people think, wow, these progressives, they were something else. It's like, no, those 5 people may be, but the rest of them don't care. And the rest of them are just like everyone else. They don't really show up. So there is that difference. I don't think they're more charged up. I think they get better press, which is entirely different. And Brainfree mentions you're downstate, but what office are you running for? I am running for the Broome County, tongue-tied at the end of 2 hours. I'm running for the Broome County legislator seat in District 13. So it's a local race. It's a state race, but it's a county level race. And if people want to see that, they can go to Vasquez for Broome. They can check that out. And I'm happy to answer those questions on the campaign side. But yeah, I'm not going to deny the fact that I am running. It's just that's not what this is about. But folks, I've been talking now for 2 hours and 2 minutes, and I enjoy because I've been talking with you. And that actually makes a difference, and I enjoy that. And I love talking to you guys. So next Sunday, 2:30, I'm going to be back, and we'll be talking hopefully about something entirely, hopefully we'll have something else that's more important than to talk about this. But with Joe Biden, you just don't know. With progressives, you just don't know. But I'm looking forward to being able to speak to you guys. Yes, you'll see more about my campaign coming up shortly. That'll be separate videos, and that's a separate YouTube channel. But you can always see me on those Soundbites Allowed here on YouTube. You can check out the Voss Political Commentary on Facebook. You can reach us at 607-242-1582 for texts or to leave calls or messages. And I thank you all. I hope everyone has a great Memorial Day. I hope we all get a chance to remember those who have given so much and do so much for each and every one of us. I am sure you're going to be okay. COVID-19 will not hold you down. And together, we're going to have a better America. I believe it. So I thank you. Have a great Sunday. Get out there, enjoy it. And folks, I'll see you in 1 week. All right? Bye-bye.